Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 11 of the anime series, Snow White with the Red Hair. Get your hankies ready by the end of this one, I'm telling you. I was misty-eyed and loving it. I'm a romantic at heart, and I was just big softy for the way this episode played out. I gotta say, it was surprising that we're picking up with Kihal and the whole bird thing going back to her island, which was something I had hoped for. I expressed being hopeful that her character would kind of stick around and become like a background character, because I was really endeared to her character from right off the bat. The way she, had to sort of get up the courage, and through Shirayuki get that courage up to go and face Zen and present him with this problem of those birds being hunted and Popo being, among them and all that kind of stuff, and showing through Popo's actions, putting him to the test and beating this scumbag, ball breaker as I called him, putting him in his place and showing that these birds are a really necessary component to this island, to the people of this island, this community, and can be actually beneficial to the processes of the kingdom and all that stuff that they proved in the previous episode. So I felt like really endeared to her character and thinking I'd like to see her, sort of staying on as a background or supporting character. And we're kind of getting that because, they go to the island and Zen is trying to make sort of a deal between them, and these guys are trying to call his bluff and will give us money. They think he's going to be just like any other so-called politician or royal and everything like that. And of course, Zen is sort of talking to Kiki, and Kiki's kind of turning it on its ear and being like, well, if we give you twice as much, are you going to, you want to respect, you want to come to this deal, this conclusion, mutually, and you don't want one or the other side to have any weight over the other and everything. We want equal footing, and you're asking for money. And so this guy only gains that much more respect for Zen because he called him on it, and, this is supposed to be a mutually beneficial agreement and everything like that. And I love how the kids are screaming in celebration. They know exactly what it means when this guy bows to Zen and everything, and how impressed he is with Zen. And of course the dialogue later between Zen and Shirayuki that Kihal will be coming to the kingdom, and she will be integral in teaching people how to communicate and be trusted with these birds in that communications network that they're going to be founding and forging. And so that all was freaking awesome. That was answering to my own wants. Of course, the real heart, if you will, the meat and potatoes of this episode, though, is the relationship between Shirayuki and Zen. And just how freaked out Shirayuki is, understandably so. I mean, this is a new venture for both of them to be coming at. And it's, from right out of the gate, I love Zen taking the position of, he realizes how shocked she is and that he kind of acted on impulse, and maybe he should have dialed it back a little bit. Of course, then we wouldn't be fangirling over it as viewers. But I love how he takes a step back right outside that moment, and he professes, I will never do that again. The next time I go to touch you or anything, it will be with your permission. And this is something that is like such a strong, profound thing for him to say, because how many honorable people, guys especially, out there exist? As an older brother and guardian to a younger sister, I have to kind of look at her as not only being my little sister, but also, being the protective brother, but also being a guardian, being like a parent. And I'm thinking all the scumbags out there that are a little less than honorable and would not necessarily have the same recoil and dialing back, their we'll say viscous juices and such like that. They will act on impulse and they'll do something they might regret later. And sadly, that's something that is strongly frustrating to me. So to once again see it in example, an example to be admired, to be aspired toward. Shirayuki is very much the embodiment of something, both male and female, but especially female viewers can aspire toward. And in this moment, in that very moment Zen's saying this, understanding that, she is her own person. She is not to be objectified. She is not a thing. She's not something he must go after. And he has no right, without her permission, to take an advance toward her. And his promising he won't do that again without her permission, it's just like, hell yes. You know, here is a male character to be admired. It's not the goofy anime trope where, like, he's just nervous and he thought he did wrong, but he's going to do it again eventually. He really is approaching the situation with maturity. Maturity and admirable qualities, because both of these individuals, you know, they are their own people. They have their own lives. And though they so want to come together, it's not that simple. It never is. It's never going to be. And that's largely the struggle, because he leaves her with, I want to know what you feel about me. I want you to be able to confront how you feel about me and reveal that to me. Are we on the same page? Are we not? And he doesn't, you know, he's still carrying around that weight through the entirety of going all the way back to his friend whom was, you know, who had betrayed him and whom was killed in front of his eyes to preserve his own life and, you know, Izana's life and everything like that. He's very much carried around the weight of his status within the kingdom, his princely position and what that means. And will he ever be able to open his heart to anyone and trust that they are being genuine when they open up their heart purportedly back to him? And he's afraid he'll never encounter anyone who could be on that level. And so, of course, you have Obi basically guarding Shirayuki the entire episode and trying to, you know, chip away at that chainmail that she's erected over herself to not reveal anything, and she's still being very nervous and all that kind of stuff. And she even gets under the skin of Ryu a little bit. He's like kind of worried about her, like, what's on your mind, girl? Why do you want to keep so busy? If you're worried about something, write it in a journal. Do something to express your worry. And it's getting everyone's attention, of course. They still are able to make a sort of roca, you know, tea to perk up Garrick and everything, which is interesting, because I was wondering if it would end up having the alcoholic effects again. And that remains to be seen. Apparently it did taste good, so whatever. And it did perk Garrick up. But, of course, Shirayuki really wants some alone time, really wants to go be off by herself. And Obi is going to be there, you know, with her, just sort of at arm's length. And it's interesting because I almost have to wonder if Obi's kind of digging on her too. This isn't the first time I've had that impression, but there's that point where they're walking and they're going to go out to the forest, you know, the inner forest of the kingdom, still held within the kingdom, I should say, where they do a lot of training and everything like that. And that's where, I guess, Zen has learned to ride on horseback and all that kind of stuff. And Obi's just going to reach for her hand. He wants to be a friend. He wants to be a comfort. But is there more to it? Because as soon as Zen, Mitsuhide, and Kiki show up on horseback, they're returning from wherever the hell they were. I'm assuming, you know, the island with Keyhole and everything. He, like, backs away from Shirayuki. He's got his arms up and he's like, I didn't do it. I wasn't going to do nothing. Don't worry about it. And I love how he is sort of the in-between now, when Shirayuki's just sort of about to break down because she still hasn't confronted those conflicting feelings. She doesn't know how to make sense of them. And Obi's there to be like, run, miss, run. Just run to the woods and everything. And then he basically turns it right back around on Zen and is like, hey, man, you're the one who caused this. You know, don't look at me. And this is where just, again, the meat and potatoes, the heart of their relationship comes to the fore in this episode when he follows her into the woods and he's like, look, I'm not going to chase you. I don't want to force you. But let's talk. Let's figure this out. It's so awkward between us. We need some common ground here. And they find a bench out in the middle of these woods finally. They both sit down and they're both enjoying the environment. And it's only then that Shirayuki is able to kind of make sense of how she feels. And she starts to get misty-eyed and she starts to feel like, you know, I don't want to hold you back. I don't want to have to, like, be different around you for now having confronted my own feelings of how much I love you. I don't want things to be different. We were good friends. You know, it's that whole lifelong thing where two friends come together and they become lovers, they become intimate, and suddenly they start to feel different in how they have to conduct themselves around each other, and you know, more often than not ends in them splitting apart. And that's what she's most seemingly afraid of in that moment. She doesn't want this to ruin what they've had thus far. And Zen, seeing this, he gets up and he's like, you give me the strength of courage that I have, as much as you say I give you. I don't want this situation to change either. And he's very much calling back on that whole princely position thing, where at no time did he want to ever feel like he was forcing her into this position, forcing her to reveal a love that maybe she wasn't sure of, or maybe she didn't feel. He didn't want to put her into a forceful position where she would acknowledge him for fear of being, you know, banished by him or suffering at the hands of him and all this kind of stuff. And some would think maybe that's unfounded. You know, where would he get that? But he's had to endure this position all his life, and he's had to see betrayals, and he's had to see people gunning for him, and, you know, only sort of, even when they found out Shirayuki was closely knit to him in the last couple of episodes, you have people sneaking into the kingdom to try to get close to her and try to, you know, manipulate her to get to Zen and affect his decisions and all that kind of stuff. So there's so much more grandiose scope to just two people who feel for each other and who love each other coming together. And this whole episode by the end was getting over that hurdle for themselves personally, between each other, nobody else taken into consideration. It's how do we feel, and can we come together, and can our coming together remain beneficial and keep our relationship as it has been. And they manage, in the ideal, of course, this is the fantasy happily ever after aspect of it, mixed in with that very mature sort of interpretation of relationships and romance between two individuals. You know, that's where that all comes together. It's that bridge between those two different story aesthetics, because they agree. You know, he extends his hand to her, she takes his hand, they embrace, they kiss once again, and I am just bawling like a little schoolgirl. So happy. You know, that's why I say get the tissues ready, because I was just like, when you see him welling up with tears, that was it. I was gone. I was like right there along with him, because this is something they both want. They've been fighting toward, and they've been trying to figure out a way with all of these, you know, hurdles that step by step they're getting over, but they're still carrying baggage and weight internally, emotionally, that has been in conflict. And they finally allayed that conflict, and they beautifully came together. You know, and with the PV for the next episode, it's like, what the hell? Is Obi trying to throw down with somebody? Is somebody trying to, you know, is this a bad guy trying to get in the kingdom? Is he just having a sparring match? Is he going after Zen because he's jealous and he wants to be with Shirayuki as well? Does Zen do something that then sort of, you know, throws this whole thing out of whack? Or what exactly is going to happen? It looks almost as though we can expect maybe like a wedding or something. I mean, based on some of the ball gowns you see very briefly in those couple of scenes for the PV of the next episode. And I really don't know. The end of the beginning, meaning a new chapter of their lives is ahead. And I know we are going to get a season 2 starting next year, 2016, which is awesome. I can't wait to see where we go from here. I can't wait to see what happens in the next episode. Just goosebumps. Really, by the end, just goosebumps, happy tears, and all. This one really got me in the heart. You know, I absolutely loved it. I adored it. I adore them together. I adore them getting over all of those trials and tribulations and those hurdles that some of them have been placed before them by others, but some of them are their own hurdles that they've placed before themselves. Ironing that out, figuring that out, was tantamount to the procedure of this episode. And so yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of episode 11 of Akagami no Shirayuki-hime, or Snow White with the Red Hair, if you've seen it, if you enjoyed it as much as I did, were as misty-eyed as I was. If not, why not? Let me know in the comments below. Love having the conversation with you guys. We can agree to disagree and come at it from all sides. Love having that discussion. So yeah, otherwise I hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.